I've never actually been in a single physical fight in my entire life. I don't want you to think I'm some kind of wimp, though. I mean, I have been in some fairly heated arguments. I mean, you could even say, shouting matches. But amazingly, I've never been in an actual physical fight. I say amazingly because where I grew up, it was very difficult, or as we would say, wicked hard, to not get into fights. I grew up in a very Irish Catholic family in a very Irish Catholic suburb of Boston, and, well, let's just say that sometimes stereotypes exist because they're at least in part true. My people love to fight. And to make matters worse, I grew up playing ice hockey, and ice hockey players really love to fight. But it was never my teammates who gave me the hardest time about not fighting. No, it was my mother. See, my mother was a fighter. She was tall and skinny, but she was tough as nails. And she loved to fight. And she loved and respected people who did fight. She was like some hardcore IRA terrorist who'd been dropped into a witness protection program in American suburbia. And she'd drive around this little town that I grew up in, just, honking her horn and giving people the finger. What? You got a problem, Grandpa? You want to go? I mean, she'd get out of the car, too. But she was nothing compared to my sister. My sister, Lisa, was one of those lesbians who's so butch by the time she's about 7 that there's no denying who she is. And she was a fighter, too. She was tough. I think she fought me mostly for the exercise. We're in the backyard. It's the middle of winter, the early 70s. Lisa is just beating the hell out of me. Blam, blam, blam. Mostly headshots, but she's working the body a little too. I'm not even blocking or even trying to avoid her punches. Finally, my mother opens the kitchen window, leans out, cigarette in the corner of her mouth. She's squinting, smoke out of her eyes. I can tell she's furious. She watches for a minute. Lisa doesn't skip a beat. She's alternating hands now because she's been working me over for a good 5 or 10 minutes now, so she's getting a little tired. Blood is pouring down my face. When my mother finally speaks, it's to me. For Christ's sake, Chiefy! Hit her! What's the matter with you? Hit her! I mean, I had actually thought she was going to stop the fight. I mean, believe me, any referee in his right mind would stop this fight. It was over. But no, she's got her fists up now. She's trying to show me what to do. I don't do anything. She watches for a few more minutes and then just shakes her head in disgust, closes the window, goes back inside. A kid who won't fight is one thing, but a kid who just stands there and takes a beating is something she can't even begin to understand. As we grew older, my sister quickly lost interest in me as a sparring partner for obvious reasons. But my mother didn't give up on me quite so easily. She'd end up going to my hockey games and screaming at the top of her lungs. Oh, for Christ's sake, would it kill you to hit somebody once in a while? I mean, what is this, the fucking Ice Capades? I thought I was watching a hockey game. People would laugh. I don't think they knew how to take her. I remember one time being in my bed, I was younger at this point, and hearing a huge noise downstairs. Crash. Then crazy drunken arguing in the kitchen. It's always in the kitchen, right below the room where my brother and I slept. Then I'd hear another big noise. Boom. Sounds like the refrigerator going over. And then silence. I lie there in the dark, listening intently for signs of life. Eventually I hear sirens. A neighbor must have called the cops, I guess. And then a cop car or a fire truck shows up. It's such a small town, we always know 1 or 2 of them. Now she's yelling at them, telling them to go fuck themselves, mind their own business. Eventually they take her to the hospital, I think. Does somebody stay with us? I can't tell. But I never move. Never. It's like that riverboat in Apocalypse Now. Don't ever get out of the boat, man. Don't ever get out of the fucking boat. You don't have to tell me twice. I'm not going anywhere. As I got older, they fought more and more often, and I laid awake listening to their arguments, trying to make sense of them. But they didn't make any sense. She's pissed off that he's gone all the time. Never mind that he's working 2 jobs and going to night school on top of it, but she just blasts him when he comes home so hard that it makes him stay away longer the next time. Nobody else had any idea what he was dealing with. I never understood it myself. Nobody did. Until years later, after my mother had died in her early 50s, we learned she'd been severely mentally ill. I mean, trust me, we'd always known that she was nuts, but when my sister was diagnosed with severe and debilitating mental illness, we realized that my mother had suffered from, among other things, borderline personality disorder. Borderline personality disorder apparently arises when infants don't develop object constancy. Object constancy is when you believe that something continues to exist even though you can't still see it. So when my father left the house every day, whether it was to go to work or to go down to the corner store, my mother believed that he'd left for good. So when he came home, she went berserk on him, because as she understood it, he had walked out on her earlier that day. Eventually, my dad did leave her for good. That's what happens with borderlines. They drive people away, although they much prefer it if you'd stay and fight. When my sister was 15, she ran away to go live with a 40-year-old girlfriend in Boston. And my brother eventually ran away to live with the family of a friend. So what about me? Why didn't I leave? In the end, it's about self-preservation. In my first grade classroom, we had a chameleon. And when it was explained to me how he adapted to survive, I was in awe. Dangerous situation? I think I'm just going to change colors and blend into the background. How nice it would be not to have to fight or fly, to have some little trick. Me, I didn't have any trick. I couldn't blend into the background like the chameleon or play dead like the possum. I was transfixed, paralyzed, simultaneously fixated, and checked out. In some situations, it makes more sense to just take a few punches. You wait for your opponent to wear down, to lose interest, eventually to go away. Sometimes it's all you can do just to survive.